The 3 a.m. whisper. Are you listening? There's something almost mystical about waking up at exactly 3 a.m. The room is still. The house is silent. The outside world is cloaked in darkness. No traffic, no noise, no movement. And yet you're awake. You may not feel panic, but you feel alert, maybe uneasy, maybe oddly thoughtful. You glance at the clock. 3:01 a.m. Again. Why this time? Why you? Here's what most people never realize. Waking up at the same time repeatedly is rarely meaningless. It's not just a bad habit or a part of aging. It's a signal, a whisper, a nudge from your body, or even from your subconscious. You see, during the hours between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., your body is at its most vulnerable and introspective state. Your heart rate is at its lowest. Your body temperature dips. And your mind, having gone through several sleep cycles, hovers between dreams and waking, a threshold state. It's the time when emotions you buried can rise, when unfinished thoughts from the day return, when physical imbalances finally make themselves known because everything else is quiet. And for many people over 50, this whisper at 3 a.m. becomes a nightly ritual. But what if, instead of fighting it, you listened? What if that moment wasn't a disturbance, but a message saying, something inside you needs care, something outside you needs a change, or simply, you are alive and your body is trying to protect you, even now. 3 a.m. isn't just a number, it's a conversation. And maybe it's time we stopped ignoring it. 1. Unspoken stress. What the mind doesn't say, the body reveals. Many people assume that stress must look loud. Panic attacks, racing thoughts, snapping at loved ones. But the truth is, for many of us, especially after 50, stress becomes silent. It doesn't scream. It whispers, often at 3 a.m., when Karen, 62, finally retired after 30 years of teaching. Everyone expected her to be relaxed, content, finally free. But she wasn't. Despite the quiet days, her nights were restless. Each night around 3 a.m., she'd jolt awake, heart fluttering, thoughts racing, with no obvious cause. What Karen didn't realize, and what many people don't, is that emotional stress doesn't always feel stressful. Sometimes it hides behind a calm face. Sometimes it burrows in the body as muscle tension, shallow breathing, or broken sleep. You see, when we suppress difficult emotions, grief, resentment, shame, regret, the mind might forget, but the body remembers. Especially at night, when mental defenses are down, the nervous system becomes more sensitive. Your brain scans for unfinished business. And if it finds something, it wakes you up gently but firmly to face it. Physiologically, this is linked to an early cortisol surge. Cortisol isn't bad. It's what gets us up in the morning. But if you're carrying chronic emotional residue, your body may release it too early, triggering a 3 a.m. awakening. What's the solution? Not repression, but expression. Gentle practices like evening journaling, deep breathing, gratitude reflection, or even whispering aloud, what's on your heart can signal to the brain. It's safe. You've been heard. Now rest. Because sometimes the key to better sleep isn't in the pillow. It's in what you've been holding in your chest for too long. 2. Liver overload. The body's detox engine is speaking. Many people think of the liver only in relation to alcohol. But your liver, this silent, tireless organ, plays a far deeper role in your daily life. It's your internal filter, cleaner, and chemical processor. And during the hours between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., it's hard at work. In traditional Chinese medicine, this time is known as the liver hour. It's when the body focuses its energy on detoxifying, not just from what you eat or drink, but also from environmental pollutants, medications, and even emotional tension stored in the body. Let's go back to Steve, a retired engineer, 68 years old. Every night, like clockwork, he'd wake up at 3:08 a.m., feeling heavy, slightly nauseous, and oddly restless. He thought it was insomnia until a friend gently asked, "Have you thought about your liver?" Steve reflected. He drank a glass or two of red wine every evening, had a habit of eating rich, late dinners, and took statins for cholesterol. His liver was working overtime, and his body was waking him up to say so. After just 2 weeks of small changes, cutting out alcohol during the week, eating lighter dinners before 7 p.m., and adding a cup of warm dandelion root tea, Steve noticed a profound change. He stayed asleep, and even more importantly, he woke up clear-headed. This isn't magic. It's the body's wisdom. Your liver doesn't have words, but it does have timing. If you're consistently waking up around 3 a.m., consider it not a disruption, but a quiet request from your detox engine. Help me help you. Nourish it, and in return, it will give you what you may not even realize you're missing. Peaceful, uninterrupted rest. 3. Hormonal shifts, the silent architects of sleep disruption. Hormones are the quiet conductors of the body's internal orchestra. They don't shout. They guide, regulating temperature, mood, energy, metabolism, and sleep. But after age 50, the music often begins to change. Let's talk about Sylvia, 59, a retired librarian. She began waking around 3 a.m. drenched in sweat, heart fluttering, her mind full of anxious thoughts. She feared it was anxiety or even heart trouble. But the culprit? Perimenopause. As estrogen and progesterone fluctuate, they disrupt the brain's ability to maintain deep, uninterrupted sleep. Estrogen normally helps regulate the body's temperature and keeps cortisol in check. Progesterone, often called the soothing hormone, promotes calmness and deeper sleep. When both decline, especially during midlife transitions, sleep becomes fragile. Sylvia's story is echoed by thousands of women who silently suffer through restless nights, assuming it's just age. But there's nothing weak or wrong about needing support. In Sylvia's case, she didn't jump to hormone therapy. She started small, magnesium glycinate before bed, avoiding caffeine after 2 p.m., and using cooling bedding. Soon, her 3 a.m. wake-ups became less frequent, and her confidence returned. But men aren't immune. Tom, 65, once a sound sleeper, began waking early, feeling tired and irritable. His testosterone levels had dipped, a natural part of male aging. Low testosterone can lead to increased cortisol, reduced REM sleep, and even depression. His solution? Daily walking, strength training, and cutting back on processed carbs, all proven to naturally support hormone balance. The truth is, hormonal shifts are not a personal failure. They're a biological reality, and with awareness and compassion, they can be navigated. So if 3 a.m. keeps calling, ask gently, is this my body's way of saying it's time for a new kind of care? 3. Hormonal shifts, the silent architects of sleep disruption. Hormones are the quiet conductors of the body's internal orchestra. They don't shout. They guide, regulating temperature, mood, energy, metabolism, and sleep. But after age 50, the music often begins to change. Let's talk about Sylvia, 59, a retired librarian. She began waking around 3 a.m. drenched in sweat, heart fluttering, her mind full of anxious thoughts. She feared it was anxiety or even heart trouble. But the culprit? Perimenopause. As estrogen and progesterone fluctuate, they disrupt the brain's ability to maintain deep, uninterrupted sleep. Estrogen normally helps regulate the body's temperature and keeps cortisol in check. Progesterone, often called the soothing hormone, promotes calmness and deeper sleep. When both decline, especially during midlife transitions, sleep becomes fragile. Sylvia's story is echoed by thousands of women who silently suffer through restless nights, assuming it's just age. But there's nothing weak or wrong about needing support. In Sylvia's case, she didn't jump to hormone therapy. She started small, magnesium glycinate before bed, avoiding caffeine after 2 p.m., and using cooling bedding. Soon, her 3 a.m. wake-ups became less frequent, and her confidence returned. But men aren't immune. Tom, 65, once a sound sleeper, began waking early, feeling tired and irritable. His testosterone levels had dipped, a natural part of male aging. Low testosterone can lead to increased cortisol, reduced REM sleep, and even depression. His solution? Daily walking, strength training, and cutting back on processed carbs, all proven to naturally support hormone balance. The truth is, hormonal shifts are not a personal failure. They're a biological reality, and with awareness and compassion, They can be navigated. So if 3 a.m. keeps calling, ask gently, is this my body's way of saying it's time for a new kind of care? 5. Sleep apnea and oxygen deprivation. Not every 3 a.m. awakening is emotional or hormonal. Sometimes, the reason is as fundamental as oxygen. Sleep apnea is a condition where your airway becomes partially or fully blocked during sleep, reducing the amount of oxygen your brain receives. Your body, sensing the drop in oxygen, triggers a micro-awakening, just enough to resume breathing. The catch? You often don't even realize it's happening, but your brain does. And it pays the price in exhaustion, irritability, and broken sleep. Let's meet Eleanor, 66, a retired nurse. She didn't snore loudly or gasp for air, at least not that she noticed. But every night, she'd wake up around 3:30 a.m. feeling parched, disoriented, and mildly panicked. She assumed it was stress until her daughter, who visited for the holidays, heard Eleanor stop breathing mid-sleep, then suddenly gasp. That moment led to a sleep study. The diagnosis? Obstructive sleep apnea. It was a revelation. Eleanor had spent years blaming menopause, aging, and anxiety. But the real culprit was oxygen deprivation, night after night. With a simple CPAP machine, a device that gently keeps airways open during sleep, Eleanor's 3 a.m. wake-up stopped. She started waking naturally at 6:30 a.m., refreshed, clear-headed. Many adults over 50 have undiagnosed sleep apnea. And because it often doesn't feel dramatic, it's brushed off. But here's the truth. If you wake up with a dry mouth, a morning headache, or frequent nighttime trips to the bathroom, it could be a sign your brain isn't getting the oxygen it needs. Don't ignore these clues. Your brain can survive short-term stress, but it can't thrive without air. 6. The soul's alarm clock, when awakening is emotional or spiritual. Not every 3 a.m. awakening has a biological cause. Sometimes the silence itself is the message. Sometimes it's not your body crying out. It's your spirit whispering. In many spiritual traditions, the early morning hours, particularly between 3 and 4 a.m., are considered a sacred time, a window between night and dawn, between the unconscious and the conscious, where distractions are gone and the deeper self begins to speak. Harold, 74, had lost his wife 2 years earlier. He thought he had grieved. He carried on stoic, composed. But each night, at exactly 3:12 a.m., he found himself waking in tears, with memories surfacing he hadn't thought of in years. He felt foolish, embarrassed, until one morning. Instead of trying to fall back asleep, he sat at his kitchen table with a pen and wrote everything his heart had to say. That ritual became healing. You see, when we spend a lifetime tending to others, fulfilling roles, staying strong, the soul often gets neglected. It waits until we're still enough to hear it. And often, that moment is 3 a.m. This kind of awakening is not a problem to fix, but a door to open. Whether through prayer, reflection, journaling, or simply sitting in quiet, these moments can lead to clarity, forgiveness, purpose, even peace. So if you wake up and don't feel panic, but feel presence, if your mind isn't racing, but your heart feels wide open, ask yourself, what am I being invited to remember, to release, or to become? Because sometimes the most important conversations happen in the dark. You're not broken. You're being spoken to. If you've been waking at 3 a.m. night after night, it's easy to feel like something is wrong with you, like your body is betraying you, like your best nights of sleep are in the past. But here's a gentler truth. You're not broken. You're being spoken to. You see, the body isn't just a machine. It's a messenger. And after 50, its messages become quieter, subtler, but also more urgent. Whether the stressed-out nervous system, a hormone shift, a sugar dip, or a silent yearning from within, these 3 a.m. awakenings aren't mistakes. They're check-ins. The world tells us that aging means decline. But maybe aging also brings a unique form of wisdom, the ability to hear the signals you once ignored, the strength to slow down, the courage to ask, what needs attention in me right now? So tonight, if you find yourself lying awake in the stillness, try something different. Don't reach for your phone. Don't get angry at your body. Just listen, breathe, gently ask, what are you trying to show me? And whether the answer is physical, emotional, or spiritual, it's real. It's worthy of your attention. Because you are not malfunctioning. You are evolving. You are being called back to yourself. And that, dear friend, is not something to be feared. It's something to be honored. So if this message resonates, I invite you to share your story in the comments. Let's remind each other. Sleep isn't just rest. It's communication. And waking up might just mean you're finally waking up to what matters most.